Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon from MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for an informative side-by-side ERP comparison. Which Microsoft Dynamics ERP is right for your business? Our presenters today are Ian Wheeler and Dan Brown, both from JourneyTEAM, and it's my pleasure to welcome them here with us today. So as we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions. You can feel free to type those in at any time during their presentation in the GoToWebinar chat box that you'll see on your interface there on the dashboard. And someone from their team will be getting back to you individually after the session. So Dan, without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to you to get us started.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate that. It's good to be with you today. We're going to cover a few questions that we get asked quite often from various clients and potential clients about which Dynamics ERP is going to fit their business best. I'm Dan Brown. I'm the Enterprise ERP Practice Director for JourneyTEAM. I've been working in the ERP space since the late 90s. I started in SAP and I've worked with many different ERP products over the years. Most recently, I finished working on Microsoft's largest ERP F&SC finance and supply chain implementation in the world, and have transitioned over to JourneyTEAM recently and excited to grow the practice here at JourneyTEAM.
Hello everyone, my name is Ian Wheeler. I'm the Enterprise ERP Program Lead here at JourneyTEAM. Also been in ERP implementation since the early 90s. Been able to travel to over 54 countries and get to know lots of people all over the world, helping them gather their requirements and implement the best solution for their needs.
Thanks, Ian. Let's dive into some of the questions, but before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about JourneyTEAM just real quickly. We're an award-winning Microsoft partner that's been around for 30 years. We've specialized in all three Microsoft Cloud products, Modern Workplace, Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft Business Applications. We're dedicated to partnering with our customers to achieve a competitive advantage by identifying the best solutions and services to accommodate their business needs. JourneyTEAM provides consultation, training, implementation, and support for domestic and international organizations across the JourneyTEAM application offering. We are dedicated to partnering with our clients in developing and deploying connected business technology solutions across several industries. And our teams have extensive experience across multiple industries, including finance, manufacturing, media and communications, and healthcare. At JourneyTEAM, we pride ourselves on helping our clients get to market faster and achieve ongoing success.
Where do we start, Dan?
Yeah, this is always a question we get. Where do we start? And oftentimes this is not unique to Microsoft's products, right? This is just, where do I start with an ERP? And the first question that an organization needs to ask is around current process analysis. That question is, what processes do we do well, and what process do we need to improve on? For example, an organization may say to themselves, look, we're fully GAAP compliant and our finance processes are locked down and sound. However, you have highly complex processes around supply chain automation, manufacturing, warehouse, and plant floor, and they need work. Second critical question is around future process analysis. The question being, what processes or process that we use today will be necessary in the future, and what new processes or capabilities do we want to include into this new ERP solution? And it's critical to understand what processes have to persist and what processes benefit the organizations by being brought into the ERP solution. For example, you may have a highly manual process today that you want to make automated as you go forward. The key point here is to have a clearly defined list of required processes and then a separate list of the nice-to-have processes. This makes it much easier to recognize which ERP solution is going to fit your organization, also to define the scope of that ERP implementation. The last question that every organization that engages or embarks on an ERP effort needs to ask is, what does their risk profile look like? What's the risk tolerance for an organizational change, for process change, and third-party solutions? Those three components are almost always present in every ERP solution that I've been involved with. So, Ian, another question we see, what are my Microsoft Cloud ERP choices? What are the offerings?
So Microsoft offers two different cloud-based solutions, Dynamics 365 Business Central and Finance and Supply Chain. Dynamics 365 Business Central, or BC, is designed for small to medium-sized businesses on a smaller budget and are looking for a shorter timeline with less complexity to implement. Finance and Supply Chain, or F&SC, is designed for mid to large companies that are usually multi-entity, global operations looking for a more consolidated or a single system approach to their ERP solution. How can I be sure F&SC or BC is a fit?
Yeah, we get this one, obviously. There's lots of criteria that will define which one's going to fit the organization best. However, we've grabbed the top 5 criteria we think that an organization needs to start with, and we always want to talk to them about first and foremost to help define which one's going to fit. First question or criteria really is around number of transactions per day. If you're looking at 10,000 plus transactions per day in your organization, you really need to be considering finance and supply chain. BC can handle up to 10,000, but it starts to feel a little heavy at that point. So 10,000 plus, you're going to want to look at F&SC. Second criteria we like to talk about is the number of users. This is a quite common conversation we have with our clients. When you hit that 500 plus users, you're clearly in the F&SC space. Business Central can handle up to 500, but again, starts to get a little boggy, a little heavy for BC to carry that load. Interestingly enough, finance and supply chain does have a minimum purchase requirement of 20 user licenses when you buy the product. And we see clients that do this. They only have 20 to 40 users, but they still go with F&SC. And often the driver for that, for a smaller use base, is offset by the increased complexity in the particular business function or operation. These operations or these functions have advanced processes that require greater functionality in the solution, even though the user base is small.
What are some of the examples of advanced processes that would warrant an F&SC solution with a small user base?
Yeah, good question, Ian. Thanks. A lot of it's around the out-of-the-box capabilities of F&SC. So out-of-the-box advanced planning, advanced manufacturing process or manufacturing process automation, segregation of duties, warehouse automation, HR is another one, and then project accounting and management. There's a few others, but those are some of your key drivers. We actually have an exhaustive list detailing the differences between BC and F&SC feature sets. So feel free to reach out on JourneyTEAM.com and we can send you a copy. The other driver for an organization to choose F&SC if they have a smaller user base is if they're implementing in a highly regulated and volatile jurisdiction. Oftentimes you'll see this with Brazil or some of the EU countries. It just makes sense to have the more robust function and feature set in those jurisdictions. Third criteria is usually around language or country supported. BC and F&SC both have language and country packs available. BC currently supports around 24 countries. F&SC supports around 47 countries, and this can be a deciding factor. The fourth criteria would be around multiple legal entities. Up to about 5 legal entities is what we usually recommend for a BC implementation. After 5, it gets a bit cumbersome working with intercompany and other types of transactions across the multiple entities. F&SC it fits 5 plus easily and can just go up from there. So that's another big deciding criteria. The fifth one is single system solution. Oftentimes we'll see clients who want to avoid bolting on a third-party solution for a given industry vertical, and so that would direct them to the standard out-of-the-box offering of finance and supply chain. So average cost to implement is another question we get a lot, Ian.
Yeah. For BC, your average is around 50,000 up to 340,000. For an F&SC implementation, we start off around 800,000 and can go over $1 million.
The question we get asked on this one, Ian, is why the swing on BC? That's a pretty big gap. What are some of the drivers there?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. For BC, the biggest contributing factor to the swing is third-party extensions. Anytime that we involve another third party to meet the requirements of the business, it adds some complexities and therefore adds some cost to the project.
Yeah, thanks.
Dan, how long does it take to implement F&SC versus BC?
Yeah, this is another thing kind of feeding off of the previous slide that can drive your costs up a little bit. So let's talk about the differences because they are different. In our experience, BC takes on average 2 to 6 months to implement. There's outliers both ways. Quite often you'll see it on the higher end for an outlier, but usually 2 to 6 months for BC. Some of the influencers of that timeline are highlighted here. Let's talk about those real quick. Limited scalability out of the box for the BC functionality can really kind of make it simpler to implement, to be honest, and therefore you're not going to have as much of a timeline you have to work with. There's just not as many options and not as much functionality you need to be configuring and setting up. Another driver here is coordination of BC and those third-party extensions we talked about. If we have a third-party solution that's being added to the solution, we find that we're working with now 2 partners and their timelines, and that can sometimes extend the timeline. Another thing that can impact BC implementation is a phased versus a big bang approach. So phased approach, we're just going to implement this module or this functionality first. Once you've got that implemented and well established, then we're going to implement the next type of functionality. So a lot of times we'll see people do finance first, then they'll circle back and do some warehousing or some contact management, those types of things, client management, in a phased approach. Otherwise, it's a big bang. Everything goes live at once. And small to medium businesses tend to be able to manage company-wide process changes concurrently. And so we do often see BC do a big bang implementation, but they can do phased, and if they do phased, it usually takes a little longer. Finance and supply chain, on the other hand, 8 to 12 plus months easily. It's very rare that we'll see something less than 8 months for an F&SC implementation. Quite often they are 12 plus months. I'd say average is between 1 to 2 years for most F&SC implementations. The large multinational organization that Ian and I worked with before was a 5-year rollout, for example. Again, that was over 162 countries. Some items that can influence the timeline, phased versus big bang again plays here. Large multinationals will almost always do a phased approach. It's just simpler dealing with the multiple jurisdictions and regulations as they roll out globally. We do see large organizations do big bang sometimes just for one particular module. For example, they might bring finances up all at once, or they might just bring all their warehouses up all at once because there's not quite as complex a landscape in those organizations. Another challenge that large organizations face with F&SC and that will impact the timeline is the multiple entities, the regional or global operations, and the complex localization requirements. I kind of alluded to this in the previous bullet, but as you look at complex localization requirements in particular, spaces again like Brazil or some of these more complex regulatory areas can drive you into a forced phased approach where you have to spend time working with the local jurisdiction to ensure that you're ready to go live and you've met all the government requirements prior to go live. Another point that can impact an F&SC timeline is that large corporations sometimes struggle to manage company-wide process changes concurrently, be it cultural and or the nature of how the business operates in one jurisdiction versus another. This will also oftentimes force a phased approach to a large organization. Transitioning from there, Ian, another question we get: users and licenses. What's this going to cost me in users and licenses?
Thanks, Dan. BC has a 1 to 500 user range that ranges from $8 simple user access license up to $100 full user license. Third-party licenses are an addition, and in our experience can range from anywhere from $30 to $100 depending on the number of extensions required. F&SC has a 20 user minimum, but can support thousands of users. Licenses start at $180 for the first module and $30 for each additional. Azure device and or capacity licenses may be an addition.
And of course, these are prices today. If you're listening to this 2 years from now, they'll probably be different, right?
Absolutely. You'll want to work with your implementation partner to get most accurate user license costs. Can I update F&SC later if I go with BC first, Dan?
Yeah, a question we hear a lot. Short answer, I'm afraid not. There is no update path from BC to FSC. Transitioning from a BC instance to an FSC instance requires a full implementation of finance and supply chain. So you're going to have a full ERP implementation project on your hands if you're looking to go from BC to FSC. Quite often we get this question in the context of, hey, we fit BC today, but our acquisition model and or our growth percentages are triple digit and we expect them to remain triple digit for the next 5 years. Are we going to outgrow BC if we go to it today? And then can we just upgrade to FSC later? Yeah, so that's quite often the scenario we have in front of us. And we often will explain that there is no update path. It is a full re-implementation of an ERP. So. One point that our clients ask us quite regularly is, what does support look like after we've implemented a cloud-based solution like BC or F&SC?
Yeah, with BC, you can expect to have a minimal IT staff that can be often outsourced. A support contract with a certified Microsoft partner. Contracts vary based on the solution size and complexity. We recommend having 1 to 3 super users or subject matter experts. If you have any third-party extensions, those vendors will offer support contracts in addition to support contracts with a Microsoft certified partner. So you'll want to make sure that you include those with your implementation partner. If F&SC is the solution your company selects as their solution, you should consider having an LCS administrator, internal IT support for basic users, desktop support. Each process needs a super user or subject matter expert. It also is highly recommended to ensure your implementation partner will provide post-go-live support at least through the first month end to help ensure that everything is working correctly for that first month. If your solution has any customizations, they will require ongoing support from a partner as well. How do we best vet a potential partner?
Yeah, it's interesting. We do get this question even though we're a partner, oftentimes because we're working with our clients in other Microsoft applications and when they decide to go to an ERP solution. And the 3 kind of criteria that we always encourage our clients to ask around are these 3. Understand their industry experience first and foremost. Does the potential partner really know your business space? And have they implemented in your business space? What kind of implementation experience do they have around your particular operations? Maybe not with you per se, but certainly in the industry. Second is understanding the methodology. First of all, Microsoft has a very good, well-defined implementation approach for these products. And do they know that? It's almost a guaranteed successful go live if they follow the Microsoft implementation guidelines and partner with Microsoft as they should be. Second is what it takes to implement BC or F&SC and the differences between the 2. Understanding the methodology between a BC implementation and the methodologies used for F&SC implementations is critical to making sure that they're both successful. A third point that we always encourage them to ask about is the solution architecture. Do they understand how the solution architecture fits the business processes and the industry that you're in? On top of that, what are their experience with the use of best practices so that the developed solution meets the enterprise architecture? By enterprise architecture, I'm talking about in terms of information architecture, integration requirements, security, system portfolios, and many more. That's what we're really talking about when we talk about enterprise architecture. Okay, I think I'm going to take these next few ones. Ian, you want to tee it up?
Yeah. What is the difference between on-premise and cloud-based ERP solution?
So this one is not a differentiator between BC and F&SC because they're both cloud-based solutions. However, a lot of the clients we run into have on-premise legacy solutions. Therefore, it's a question we face quite often. First of all, stating the obvious, on-premise solutions require ownership and management of all associated hardware. It includes a larger IT staff quite often, as well as greater management efforts when you're doing an on-premise solution. Cloud-based solutions have many benefits, and we just want to highlight a few of them here. So first, the ability to make rapid business transformation around scaling up or down on the technology footprint is a huge benefit from cloud. Second, keeping data safely off premises and more secure while shifting the security liability of that data to your cloud provider and providing a more cost-effective security model. Local companies and large organizations that require data security are hard-pressed to be able to implement as robust a security model as Microsoft provides, doing it themselves in an on-prem model. It just isn't feasible. A third benefit is avoid purchasing and maintaining costly software and hardware, a little bit obvious, but it is a benefit. Support IT needs with a leaner IT staff and operation is another benefit. Get flexible deployment options that address regulatory requirements, updated features and functionality, and use of data center investments is one of the big benefits of having a cloud-based solution. Transition to the final point here on this question, if we could, Ian. That's going to be the short list of these kind of high-level benefits. You can access information from almost any device with a cloud-based solution. You genuinely simplify and accelerate business process change model. If you've got an acquisition model, if you've got an expansion model or a contraction model, it's so much easier to implement that business process change across a cloud-based solution than on an on-prem. It's also more cost-effective. Integrating with legacy systems is another capability that we see with the cloud-based offerings from Microsoft. Both BC and F&SC come with mature integration models and capabilities. Integrating with a legacy system that needs to persist and/or integrating with a new third-party solution later down the road are both very, very easily done with the APIs and other integration capabilities of these systems. And lastly, simplify global compliance and scalability. Both of these offerings are very scalable and flexible as they are managed by Microsoft from a country pack solution and/or global compliance solution. I think that brings us to the end of our questions. Thanks for everybody's participation. Choosing a cloud-based ERP from Microsoft provides a great opportunity for any organization to implement a digital transformation in a meaningful and efficient way that will continue to grow and scale with them as they move through their business growth. Laura, we'll hand it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ian. That was a really informative comparison on the ERPs. We did record today's event. We'll be making that available. And if you did type in a question for them during their presentation, you can look forward to a response from someone from their team shortly. So with that, we're going to end it there. Have a great day, everybody.